they're privileged people who can weather their storm. But then to the earlier point that there are now a lot of families, a lot of people who were able to withstand the first, second wave, but now the third wave is going to be very hard because savings are depleted, jobs are not there, things are not recovering. So there's definitely going to be a lot of suffering and pain, both health wise and economically.
All right, you're listening to the Brown Perspective. This is RO, and I'm here with the one and only Eduardo Capetillo,
Hola, hola, aquí estoy.
fresh off of his latest novela, ¿Cómo quieres que te quiera? Con este
¿Y cómo
corazón.
quieres que te quiera?
Oh man, I don't know how many people get the Eduardo Capetillo reference. Probably not many.
I don't think so. And
If I have one goal from doing the Brown Perspective, it's to make Eduardo Capetillo relevant again. That's gonna be my long-term goal for.
this week, Eduardo Capetillo hace lo siguiente.
Yeah. All right. So we have a evolving situation with this coronavirus. The country is going back into lockdown. New York, LA, other parts of the country, because there are two reasons mainly. The numbers are increasing, and I think policymakers are pretty concerned about what that may mean for this Thanksgiving holiday. And also, Thanksgiving could be an indicator of how things may be for Christmas as well. So I think they're trying to jump ahead a bit, nip it in the bud, and try to
Hmm.
see if they can lower these numbers right now. So they you could see it as an overreaction to try to shut down again. Here in LA County is no more in-person dining, which means you can do it indoors or outdoors. And then there's curfews throughout the state of California. But I think, just the biggest one is really the one to that hurts these non-essential businesses that they need to close down again. So
Yeah.
that's going to be pretty devastating for a lot of these businesses, especially considering that the government hasn't come forward saying that they have a relief package as well for all these
Hmm.
people that are all of a sudden going to be out of a job. So let's see how that plays out.
Yeah, I think that, you point out that the fact that it is government trying to get a handle on this, one, because of the health, the public health implications of still having a deadly virus out there. But the more important piece is the economy, right? And to your point, the small businesses that are struggling, who are just well, small and large, that are struggling to stay open. They had to do all these modifications and interrupt their business model in some ways, and now there's a threat that we're going to go to another shutdown, and that's gonna impact their ability to make money. So I think that you're right. I think it's about that, and it's a fear that this is gonna go not only through the holiday Thanksgiving season, which is usually that time where people are out and about, which is crazy when you think about it. That one of the things that we miss is seeing people run and be so close to each other and just fight each other for deals that happened on Black Friday, and that is a concern that obviously that takes a very different uh, a different meaning in these times of a pandemic. But there are a lot of people hurting, and we'll see if with the new administration in Washington D.C. see what happens or what doesn't happen to help those businesses and also those people who are in need of help right now.
And you're right in that they're saying it's going to be for 3 weeks, but I don't think it'll be 3 weeks. I think it'll go beyond Christmas. And the problem with these lockdowns is that people don't really follow these guidelines.
Yeah.
And even today, I went to get my car to get serviced, and you're supposed to have a distance of 6 feet between anyone that's around you. And even the
Hmm.
employees at the places that you go to don't follow this. I mean, they're walking right next to you. They're getting really close to you. Nobody
It's
does that.
fatigue, or they
Have you
just
actually?
kind of get letting down their guard.
No, that's just. Have you actually seen a business where they stay 6 feet apart? and
Mm,
they they would look like robots if they were doing that,
hmm.
because they would have to be so mindful that they're coming close to you, and then they would have to move away like magnets that repel. That doesn't
Hmm.
happen. It's just we're not wired to do that. I have not gone to a single business where people actually adhere to those guidelines.
Yeah, they try to, but then you can see how it's little things that happen, or like, yeah, you're not you sending together, your mask is under your, you can see your nose, that you don't see disinfectant, and you see people touching the same handle,
Hmm.
all these things that I think not only as employees but our customers, we kind of just in a weird way internalize this. And we're 9 months into this pandemic, into the experience, and unfortunately not even our governor Gavin Newsom was able to stick and follow his guidelines and go into restaurants, into celebrations
Oh
with
yeah.
people outside of his household.
Yeah, well, before the governor, it was Nancy Pelosi getting her
That's
hair
right.
done.
That's why I'm letting my COVID fro grow.
Yeah. So I don't know. It's going to be disruptive for a lot of these businesses for the reasons that you mentioned, and um, you'll you'll see a lot more resistance to it this time around. But we'll see. We'll see how much. It's hard to say. It's just it puts a lot of people in a bad place because there's just no help available to them. If the government was saying that you have to close your business, but this is the type of help that we're offering you, and even for people that are getting sick, we're going to give you guys temporary full coverage for anything related to COVID, right? If the government was actually doing those things, then it would actually be helping the people. But they're just telling businesses to shut down without offering them anything that is in any way comes close to making them whole in terms of
Yeah.
the money that they're going to lose,
Yeah.
employees and
Mm,
businesses. So look, I understand, I sympathize with the people that are upset about this, especially if it's people that have not been affected by it. It must be a lot harder for them to see, um, and to ask themselves why the rest of the country is overreacting, or from their
mhm.
perception, why it may seem that others are overreacting.
Yeah, and it's funny because then you get into the situations like, yes, we can let businesses start, but look what happens. People start relaxing their safeguards, they let their guard down, and then they want to get together, and then the spread continues because part of what has led to us being here is that we've had weeks and days where we have over 2,000 people, 3,000 people infected with this virus. And the other point that I wanted to make, que se me escapó, se me fue la paloma. Oh no, this is what I wanted to say. The vaccines. I think
Yeah, the
people are also,
vaccines.
there's this full sense of security, like, oh, the vaccines are almost here. If I get it, there will probably be a vaccine ready for me to take. And that's not the case, right? It's still going to take a while for those vaccines to be available. And I'm glad you pull out the where we are right now with the COVID-19 vaccines.
Yeah. Wasn't it interesting how Pfizer was the first one that beat everyone else to the announcement, and they said that their vaccine was 90% effective? And then Moderna comes out and is like, actually, ours is 95% effective. And then
Another
within a few days, Pfizer comes back and says, actually, ours is actually 95% effective too.
95, yeah. Because they try to rush, right? They rush to try to be obviously benefit, and they did. I mean, I think Pfizer stock went up, and I don't know how much of that lingering effect went up. But yeah, it was funny because once the other Moderna came on the picture, they were like, "Oh well, 95, that's better, and it's a little easier to transport, not as complicated as the Pfizer one." And obviously now we have this one, which Oxford as AstraZeneca, which comes at a lowly 90%. And I'm just kidding because actually I know as it relates to epidemiology, I want to say that 60% or 70% was the target that Anthony Fauci would be comfortable with.
Hmm. But I'm surprised that no one's really talking about how Pfizer just came out and said, actually, our first number was not the right one. We're at 95% now. And that should raise some red flags for people. It's like, wait a minute.
Hmm.
I was already skeptical of this 90% number that they came up with to begin with.
Yeah,
because
because it's pretty high.
if you work in the corporate America, what you realize is that a lot of this is marketing, and a lot of businesses, what they'll do is they'll overpromise because they think that they'll have something by the time it's needed. So companies like Pfizer and Moderna must have said, look, we don't have it yet, but we're pretty close. We think we'll have it in a few months, and we'll probably be at this efficacy. And they're probably at a number like 60%, 70%, but they think they could be at 90% in a few months when it matters. Because right now you can't even start mass producing it yet, so that
Hmm.
buys them some time because they can come up with the announcement and they don't have to deliver on day one. They still have to wait around for the mass production, and then it has to be
Hmm.
distributed. So that gives them enough time to really get to these numbers that they're giving us. So that's why to them, this is just me analyzing that move that they did from 90 to 95%. To them, it was nothing. It's like, oh, okay, just go ahead and say we're at 95% too, because that 90% number was actually bullshit to begin with. Also,
Is it either bullshit or is just like amazing?
it was just
And I think that's the other
it's a
piece. Like, oh
projection.
wow, like yeah, I was gonna say, but it's almost like going to the moon, right? Like, oh, you can't you you have a scientific challenge that's so difficult that everybody was so focused and they were able to, there probably were some Apollo 11s in there or other Apollos that didn't make it, but the ones that make it, it's a huge scientific achievement.
Oh, no, yeah, no doubt, it's going to be a huge once they have the vaccine, and this is why these cities are hoping that if they just do a lockdown right now, that things will not get bad during this holiday season, and then for next year, early next year, the vaccines are ready, and then people, I suppose, start lining up to take the vaccine. I don't know what percentage of the country is going to be comfortable taking a vaccine that was rushed. My feeling is that most people will take it, but there is going to be a percentage of the population that is not going to be comfortable taking it. But maybe that's
Yeah.
okay. Maybe they'll get enough immunity out there to get what they call herd immunity. So maybe that'll be okay, given with the amount of people that will be willing to take it right away. So the vaccines are coming, and it was just funny to me how Pfizer just came up and said, "Yeah, 95% too." Yeah, yeah, buddy, 95%.
You're not
And
gonna outdo me.
yeah. And then this will become normal yearly vaccines like the flu that people will be taking. And then so sometime next year people can look forward to going back to, whatever their normal was. But I think if people were expecting to be able to enjoy the holidays and not have to worry about this, then, it's too bad because they have to deal with it. But we're almost there. Yamero.
Yeah. And I guess in some ways it's kind of ironic that we're dealing with a life-ending virus around Thanksgiving time because, in some ways, Thanksgiving, what happened then and before and after Thanksgiving in terms of the decimation of Native American populations because of disease and other factors.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in some ways, it's kind of ironic that this is happening at a time when we celebrate that and kind of brings that experience into perspective.
uh, you give people a lot more credit than I do for being able to do introspection and come up with these insights into the perspective and how current events relate to historical events.
Hey man, I know our listeners at the Brown Perspective are at that level, if not higher.
The lockdown order goes into effect tomorrow. We'll keep track of it and see how it plays out. But as of now, here we are, November, still dealing with this.
Again, we're 9 months we've been doing this, so you realize, you know what, this is the new normal for at least a bit longer, if not spring, at least summer, if not the latter part of next year. So in some ways, it does feel that okay, nothing has changed, but also acknowledging and realizing that there are privileged people who can weather their storm. But then, to the earlier point, that there are now a lot of families, a lot of people who were able to withstand the first, second wave, but now the third wave is going to be very hard because savings are depleted, jobs are not there, things are not recovering. So there's definitely going to be a lot of suffering and pain, both health wise and economically, in the next month, in the next year or so.
Yeah, let's hope they can figure out an economic relief package soon so that they can at least give people an idea of when they can expect some relief.
Yes, that'll
Right.
be good.
Okay, entonces I think we'll leave it at that. Thanks everyone for listening. If you like our content, make sure to follow us at Brown Perspective on YouTube. We're also on Instagram and Twitter. Nos vemos.
Tápate la boca.
All right.